Joining me now live from London, Australia's longest-serving Foreign Minister and, of course, former High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, Alexander Downer. Alexander, thank you for your time. Look, we were going to have a bit of a chat about what's likely to happen, but we've just got that breaking news that the Prime Minister's likely to resign, make a speech shortly. I don't know about you, but I was watching it last night like I was watching a thriller. 54 resignations now in the last 48 hours. About a third of the government has resigned. Will we see anything like this ever again in politics?
I've never seen it quite like this. Obviously, when prime ministers get overthrown, as we know in Australia, it's very dramatic. But in this case, Boris Johnson really hunkered down and tried to resist the demands that he resign. But look, with a combination of things, there's just been an avalanche of events which have militated against him, including these continual scandals about the behaviour of Conservative MPs. And the media and the opposition understandably ask him what he knew about these people and his responsibility for appointing them and all that sort of thing. And, you know, look, in the end, I think the party had just had enough of the scandals and the upheaval. They just wanted a quieter life and to focus on the issues that are important to the public.
So we know when he faced that 1922 committee vote of confidence, which he won, 2/3 voted for him, about a third of his party room or his parliamentary benches voted against him. Then he had those two pretty horrific results in the by-elections. I think that made things difficult for him. But I think the tipping point was that scandal you mentioned there and the allegation that the Downing Street knew about it, knew about the behaviour of this MP being questionable, kept him in a job, indeed promoted him, and then when it blew up again, they sort of had a bit of blood on their hands. What happens now? What's the process once the Prime Minister resigns? Is there a caretaker Prime Minister? How do they run out the new Tory leader? Because the country needs a Prime Minister.
So he will remain the Prime Minister until a new leader of the Conservative Party and therefore Prime Minister is elected. And the way that election happens is that, first of all, the parliamentary party reduces the number of candidates to 2. So at this stage, we don't know how many there will be, but there will be, there could be quite a few because there's no obvious candidate. There's no obvious alternative to Boris Johnson, which has been one of the issues. So they get reduced to 2, and then the 2 candidates are put out to the broad membership of the party across the country who vote on their preferred choice. So that all takes a lot of time. That'll take a good, I haven't heard, but I think that'll take around a month or so. It will take quite a bit of time, because particularly as the public ballot will have to be organised and administered. That will all take a fair bit of time. So Boris Johnson will remain the Prime Minister until then.
It's just so messy, isn't it? It's so messy, Alexander, when you're in government. Who are the front runners?
Right, this is a very difficult question to answer. There's a guy called Ben Wallace, who is the Defence Minister. He is pretty popular at the moment because the government seem to be handling the Ukraine war very well. Rishi Sunak, the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, as they call him in the UK, the Treasurer, we would say, he would be a front runner. Liz Truss, the Foreign Secretary, a Foreign Minister, she is a front runner. Sajid Javid, who is the Health Minister, who resigned and started this avalanche of resignations a couple of days ago, he too will be a front runner. But I mean, a dark horse could come through from nowhere, so you can't be sure at all how it will end up. It's very, very hard to tell. As you know, there's normally a very obvious alternative. You've been through this yourself with Tony Abbott. There was Malcolm Turnbull as the alternative. When John Howard was the Prime Minister, Peter Costello was seen to be the alternative. There's nothing like that here at all. There is no obvious alternative. So somebody will just come through the middle.
I've got to ask you how Boris Johnson will be remembered, his legacy, given such a strong result for the Tory party at the general election, getting Brexit done. I think the world can thank him for that, Conservatives around the world. But the scandals and Partygate and all of that, how will he be remembered, one? And what's the likelihood, and I suppose this depends on who the new Prime Minister is, that they can resurrect their fortunes? Because Keir Starmer is not actually a strong contender on the Labor side. How likely is it that they can perhaps win at the next general election?
I think it'll be very hard for them. So first of all, in terms of the legacy, I think Boris Johnson will be remembered above all for not for his demise actually, but for Brexit, because that will be the lasting legacy. That really will be something that'll last. And he was elected to get Brexit done. He did get Brexit done. And he did it very successfully. There's still some argument with the EU about Northern Ireland, but otherwise it's been done pretty well and pretty efficiently. I think, secondly, he'll be remembered for a very good foreign policy. His foreign policy has really been excellent in all different parts of the world. And then thirdly, there are the scandals, which, Boris Johnson is not what you'd call a disciplined or in his personal behaviour, a conventional person. And the Partygate issue has been incredibly damaging. His enemies have just milked it for everything it's worth. And the trouble is, his stories have kept changing. And then this sort of, which we've talked about already, all these scandals are culminating in the Chris Pincher scandal. I mean, it was the last straw, this Deputy Chief Whip, Chris Pincher, physically assaulting some man in a club in the West End of London. And he was the Deputy Chief Whip, and then the Downing Street messages became very mixed. And I think MPs just thought they'd had enough.
Unsurprisingly, Alexander Downer, thank you for your time.